You're listening to goldradio.fm. Available online at housestreet.com, talkdigitalnetwork.com. Welcome to goldradio.fm, podcasting in 0.99995. I'm Jim Goddard. My guest is Jim Willie, editor of the Hat Trick Letter online at golden-jackass.com. Welcome to goldradio.fm.
Well, it's good to be back. A lot is going on. I keep saying that every month. A lot is going on. And it is accelerating in the breakdown.
Can you tell us about the Hat Trick Letter, how listeners can subscribe and get a private consultation with you?
Sure. I'm in my 22nd year now. It's golden-jackass.com. The website is, I think, really quite pretty. It's got some nice green color to it. I got a lot of buttons on it. In the center is a subscribe button. There's also a consult button. I'm available over 3 weeks, about 3 weeks per month for consult calls. I did one over the weekend. They're a lot of fun. They're very enjoyable, very useful for the clients from what they say. And I enjoy them too. And once in a while I get some pretty ripe information I call boots on the ground. So that's the consult button. The donate button is useful for people who really don't want a newsletter but want to support me. And then the sponsor button is unique. It's for very wealthy people who want to help me in a big way to support my mission. So in April, I had my 21st anniversary, Jim, and I'm no longer a young man, but I'm full of energy and full of enthusiasm for what's happening as we report the world situation, which is generally a mess. The narco presidents and the cabal out of Geneva and London and Vatican, they have made a gigantic mess. So now we have to survive.
Gold broke through the $4,000 barrier and moved higher. Where do you see gold going from here?
I don't really see a limit. I mean that sincerely. It's going to make a march toward 5,000. Remember a year ago we were talking about breaking 3,000. Well, now we've broken 4,000. It reminds me of 1995 and 1996 when the Dow Jones Industrial was moving up 1,000 at a time, and everybody was wondering how long will it take to get to the next 1,000. Now we're seeing the same thing with gold. We have no solution in the U.S. government debt. We have no solution really with the supply chain. The supply chain got destroyed, not completely, but very much sabotaged during the illicit lockdown, where healthy global residents were put into a quarantine. Never happened before in history, but it shows the power of the doctors, and they're in collusion with the bankers. So I don't see 5,000 being the limit. I just see it as the next target. We've also got war. So we have supply chain problem, we have inflation problem, we have U.S. government debt problem, and we have a constant war. Trump has supported this by changing the name of the Pentagon Department to the Department of War, going back to what it was in the Civil War era, when war was a part of the economic activity. So now at least Trump is acknowledging that war is part and parcel and deeply integrated in United States policy. If we don't get what we want, we will declare war. If we want to sack the coltan and oil from Venezuela, we will declare war. If we want to isolate Iran and take their gold, which they've refused for the Rothschild system, we'll declare war. If we need to defend the Ukraine trafficking of children, drugs, adrenochrome, bioweapons, and more, we declare war. I know this is not Trump's war, but he has not stopped that war. And he's been rather belligerent toward Putin. Okay, I don't see a limit of 5,000. I don't see a limit of 6,000. We don't have anything resolved. We're still accumulating $1 trillion every 100 days for the U.S. government debt. And we still have a government military war budget that is exceeded by the interest. So, interest is over $1 trillion a year. The Pentagon budget is, close to $900 billion a year. We don't have income tax and we don't have revenue to support this. So we're just out of control. This is a runaway train going downhill. So why would anybody think there's a limit to the gold price?
Silver has broken out to new all-time highs. Do you have any short and long-term silver targets?
10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 130, 210. Those are my targets. I think Mr. Fibonacci would admire those targets. Okay, we've got a new phenomenon that was not here 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. I think 3 years ago it was very safe to say they moved the target from 30 to 35, and 30 had to be overcome, and then they moved the fence to 35. And then I guess it was about a year ago or so, we had a 35 fence, and that had to be overcome, which meant they moved the fence to 40. And each time they moved the fence, there are fewer institutions defending it. So the fence used to be 40, and then it was made 45 a few months ago. That did not hold. Okay, it's the first time that a unit of 5 was overcome and knocked down quickly in my recent memory. Therefore, I reasoned that 50 would not hold. If 45 didn't hold, why would 50 hold? It has not held. Okay, now that 50 is not held, we're at the same juncture that we are with gold. We don't have any solutions for supply chain, inflation, government debt, and war. But it's worse now because the Mexicans are creating a cartel. They're supplying silver to China and not to the United States. And I think all of Latin America is going to follow that parade, and they might create a Latin American silver cartel. At the same time, we got battery technology that's taking a tremendous drain on the silver market, and we have solar photovoltaic. So I've got this one particular point of reasoning that I repeat once in a while, and I don't mind repeating things if they're still at work, still functioning, and still powerful. Back in August and September of 2020, my inside word, it was Maxwell from Luxembourg, and he had to lie low because they're trying to murder him. Okay, this is war. And in war, people get shot. People get killed. Ask Virginia Giuffre. How's she doing? Oh, I'm sorry, she got killed. Okay, Maxwell from Luxembourg told me that in August and September of 2020 that Basel supplied 200 million ounces of silver to J.P. Morgan's Switzerland subsidiary. And they did not want 30 to be broken. And it was not broken. And it stayed in defense for about a year or even a little bit more into 2022. Now, we've broken 30, broken 35, broken 40, broken 45, broken 50. And the world has changed. And my reasoning is rather simple, but it's a powerful point. I don't think Basel is going to be tossing 200 million ounces of silver metal into the market to defend 50 or 55 because the main buyers are India and China. So, will Basel, the Bank for International Settlement, that's the full name, will they be throwing away 200 million ounces of silver, supplying it to the East and the BRICS nations, knowing full well that they can't stop it this time because there are fewer defenders No, they're not going to. I think Basel has decided we're going to be the beneficiaries of our own silver. We're not going to throw it away this time. They threw it away at $30 5 years ago. Exactly. What was the benefit? They bought a little time, and they lost their vaulted supply a portion. They never tell us how much silver they have in Basel. They never tell us how much gold they have in Basel. And for those who don't know it, sovereignty is something that Basel has. They don't answer to anybody. They tell central banks what to do. They don't answer to anybody. They don't reveal their data. They don't reveal their vault contents. They don't reveal what they've stolen. I'm sorry, what they hold. So no, we don't have a limit for silver. I think by the end of the year we could be pushing $80. Why do I say 80? Well, I don't just make it up. Fibonacci, 10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 130, 210. You know, for those who mock me, you stupid trolls out there who send me emails that I never respond to, yeah, Fibonacci is at work here, whether you like it or not. And so is the fascism at work, whether you like it or not. Fascism has merged with communism. Get a grip. Try to get current in what's going on, because the Democrat Party is a merger of narcos, communists, and Satanists. The narcos are the previous 4 U.S. bankers. The communists are the Chinese Communist Party. And the Satanists are the bankers in Geneva, London, New York, and a little bit in Hollywood. Get a grip. Fascism has merged with communism. You ignorant trolls who I never respond to. All right, let's move on.
What caused the one-day financial bust on October 10th when stock markets hit all-time highs?
It was a combination of things, Jim. You know, it's never one thing. I learned that a long time ago in marketing research. There are dominant factors. It seemed at the time to me that, oh my gosh, the Fed announced that they might not continue with rate cuts. Oh my gosh, I think that's going to hurt the stock market. And then I heard almost the next day that the Chinese were responding to Trump tariffs, which I regard as very destructive, a very bad third world policy. The Chinese responded with trade tariffs of their own, and Trump said we're going to put 100% tariff on Chinese products coming in, and the Chinese said we're going to do a complete block of all rare earth metals. So, you know, when it heats up with China, why do we suddenly have more tension with Venezuela? Because they're a source of rare earth metals. It's coltan, otherwise known as blue gold, a quartz that contains tantalum, a very important component, I believe, for cell phones. So you had the Fed rate cut, Jim. You had the Chinese escalated trade war. But there's something else. I think it was just very strong winds of a government shutdown. And the government shutdown is not quite what people think. And I'll save that for another question. So it's a no Fed rate cut. They may not cut for the next round. I think they'll cut later on. But why should the U.S. government cut rates when we're stacking up another $1 trillion in debt every 100 days? Makes no sense. Why? Well, because it's practical. A rate cut is practical because the big banks want to bail out and exit their underwater bonds. They want a bond rally to get out of their bonds that are underwater, insolvent. Insolvency is all through the Wall Street banks. Okay, it doesn't mean we should cut rates. It means they want to cut rates. Why should a nation like the United States, which has, I don't know, maybe 14 of the 20 characteristics of a third world nation, why should they cut rates? They got more than 100% debt compared to GDP. That's a sign of a third world nation. Okay. It's a number of different things, and I believe we're seeing an installation of the quantum financial system and a lot of arrests. That's a little preview of what I'm going to say about the lockdown.
Does it look like the U.S. dollar put in a double bottom this July and September?
I don't know. I regard all conversation of a dollar collapse to be lunatic and really, really bad analysis. I've been saying this for about a year. Whenever the dollar index gets low, it means the euro is too high, and the Euro Central Bank will do whatever they can to bring down the euro because it will threaten their entire export trade. That means Germany. It means, a lot of different things. The French export, the Italians export, the Dutch export. If the euro gets too high, they lose their export trade. Everything gets too expensive. So the Euro Central Bank conspires, maybe a better word is, has a goal to bring down the euro, which means bring up the dollar. These are all toilet turds in a big toilet pond. None of them looks good. So if any one gets bad, the others look better, and they don't deserve to look better, so they get pushed down into the turd pool. The dollar's not going to decline terribly. What's going to happen is all the Forex currencies are going to be in decline versus the gold price. Oh, that's happening.
Are we likely to see more Fed rate cuts ahead?
Yeah, they have to. We were in an inflationary depression following the illicit lockdown. We had 13, 14, 15% inflation in the United States in 2021 and 2. They lied about it and said it was 7. Just add 6 or 7 always, because they're liars. They're professional liars. They're promoters of treasury bonds, so they have to lie. They want to sell their bonds. Okay, therefore, we're going to see more rate cuts because we have to stimulate the economy and we have to stimulate the financial markets. I'm of the opinion for the last several years that rate cuts are not designed to stimulate the economy. They're designed to stimulate the financial markets. They bring about a bond rally. They bring about a stock rally. People feel more wealthy. They draw money out of their mutual funds. They spend more. Does it really mean from lower rates that we're expanding the economy? Or have we consistently, year after year, built up foreign economies from outsourced industry? Look at the difficulty Trump is having to reverse that. We're not getting squat for foreign direct investment. Trump wants it. But Trump's attention is directed at New York. And New York wants a stimulus for the stock market and the bond market so that banks in New York can have a bond rally and exit their underwater asset book portfolio of treasury bonds. They've gone in the last 2 years or more from $840 billion down to about $500 billion. They still have a lot of bonds that are underwater. They call them assets. They don't want to say they're treasury bonds, but they're predominantly treasury bonds. They bought all that Kool-Aid where we had very low interest rates. Why do we have low interest rates? Why do we have 0% interest rates?
What would happen if the U.S. defaulted on its debt?
Well, that's a loaded question. How do you know they haven't? When we do treasury auctions and they're very poorly attended and the foreign participation is very low and we have to hand money to Brussels and Ireland and the Cayman in order to buy bonds from ourselves, wouldn't you call that a default? When the BRICS nations are dumping tens of billions of treasury bonds every month and we pump up USD Tether in order to pay them on the dump treasuries, is that not a default? Okay, what we're seeing, Jim, is all the events that smell like a default without a billboard that says default. When we buy most of our debt and we use the Exchange Stabilization Fund to do that in large part, are we not in default? I put that back to the questioner. Please define default.
In the crypto world, are you still liking XRP?
I like it more every single week. Sign up for the newsletter, and you'll find a chapter in each of the last 4 months dedicated to XRP, and you'll learn a lot. And don't ask your neighbor and don't ask a friend from Wall Street to explain what's going on, because they are ignorant sots. Most people don't have a clue what XRP is. They don't have a clue what their intellectual property is. They don't have a clue of their adoption partners. They don't have a clue of the global central banks that are involved, integrated with XRP. They don't have a clue of the BRICS and their integration with XRP. We've got a global wave, and it's covering every continent, and there's some irony here. Africa does not have a lot of Rothschild banks. Therefore, they had no resistance to crypto generally. I mean, digital finance. Therefore, Africa is serving as a test ground for about 4 or 5 different payment systems, and one name that sticks out for me, because it's easy to remember, they call it Yellow Card. And I just noticed news today that XRP is now going to be fully adopted by ABSA Bank, that's across several African nations. And it's working very well in Africa. Okay, so Ripple it's taking the world by storm. And what's going to happen probably is the companies and financial institutions that say, we're not going to fully adopt XRP, they're going to adopt a different transfer system where the final settlement is done by XRP. That's how funny it's becoming. They can join the entire Ripple ecosystem, which includes the RLUSD stablecoin and the XRP ledger, which is an accounting book online, on-chain they call it. They could do that, or they could just go their own way, but the final settlement, are they going to want to have an escrow corresponding account on each end, the Nostro and Vostro account? I don't think so. No, XRP with its on-demand liquidity enables the elimination of somewhere around $15 trillion in corresponding bank. They're calling it, escrow funds. Escrow funds on the receiving end, escrow fund on the sending end, and all that's eliminated. So will the banking industry like to get rid of $15 trillion tied up so they can actually use it to invest and to lend out and do R&D and do expansion, lending to companies, and maybe get back on track with commercial real estate? I think hell yes. So XRP will continue to take the world by storm. And there's some really big, thick lies being told by SWIFT, because SWIFT is already using it. SWIFT is already using XRP with 11,000 banks through a consortium called Thunes. That's THUNES. And they lied and said they weren't going to use XRP. They consider XRP a rival when they're really a partner. But SWIFT is really a cabal creature. And they're full of pride. And they've got their own desires to continue in a dominant way. But they better be careful. They're going to be swept aside.
We'll have more with Jim Willie right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
You're listening to goldradio.fm. Available online at HowStreet.com, TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome back. We're speaking with Jim Willie. Jim, do you think the Gaza peace deal will stick?
I don't really know. I don't call it a peace deal. I call it a hotel deal that has a feature where Israel will release the hostages of Israeli soldiers that Israel is holding and blaming it on Hamas. If it results in an end to the genocide, I'm all for it. But what I believe might happen is they're going to develop the whole region, and the residents of Gaza will be hotel employees to do maid service, door service, parking service, food service, laundry service. So that would be better than what we have now. I find it ludicrous that Trump is being mentioned for a Nobel Peace Prize when he looked the other way for, 18 months, where 200,000 people were murdered. Well, then again, Obama won a Peace Prize for nothing at all. And by the way, that came with a $1.5 billion Vatican account for the fudge packer from Kenya. I don't know, Jim. I hope it sticks. Egypt has put its military in there, and that's a really good sign. I don't think the Israelis are going to want to wage war with Egypt and Syria at the same time.
Are there positives and negatives to the use of trade tariffs?
The benefits are deceptive. Okay, I'll explain this as best I can. I've been against the trade tariffs. I thought it was a horrible idea out of the gate about 6 or 8 months ago. The apparent benefit is that we've got money coming into the U.S. Treasury, and it comes into the investment side. Let's just say, I don't want to get really complicated. The term is current account deficit, which is the trade deficit plus the investment deficit. But if we get tariffs coming in, that's income on the investment side, and it offsets the trade deficit. So let's just call it, we got a big reduction in the trade deficit, which is evident. And it's deceptive because Trump believes that means we have economic activity. For those who think Trump is a genius in business, I got news for you. He's not. He had 3 bankruptcies, and now he considers trade tariffs as a great source of income. And when the income comes in to offset trade deficits, he regards that as economic activity. That's dumb as a rock. What we have now is a continued economic depression where inflation is being reduced in a few pockets, like food and fuel, like diesel, gasoline, food prices. It's calming. It's not coming down much, but gasoline prices are coming down. But insurance is not going down. Rent is not coming down. So where's the economic activity, Donald, that you're boasting about a very strong U.S. economy, the strongest in half a century? What a nutball. We've got offsetting trade deficits from the tariffs. Furthermore, when he boasted of slapping tariffs on Japan, which was a stupid idea, we had SoftBank, which had pledged in March of this year $200 billion in foreign direct investments for data centers, robotics, and electricity plants. They stopped. It was a punitive trade tariff slapped on Japan that never should have been done. They should have been given a complete pass. Okay. Where's the benefit, Donald? It's only to reduce the trade deficit. The costs are that it stalls pledges. Okay, where's the Saudi investment of their $100 billion? Are they building new refineries in the United States, Texas, Louisiana? No. No. Where's the investment, Donald? I don't see any. What we've done is we've angered nations like India. We're slapping a tariff on India. Why? India said, screw you. We're going to embrace Russia and buy their energy and process it and sell it as refined products to Europe. Okay, they're working around the Russian sanctions, Donald. Your tariff is alienating the entire planet. And if you're not careful, there's going to be a global embargo against the United States. He's a business moron. Okay, he's installing liberty and cutting the federal fat in the bureaucracy, and he's exposing USAID. He's exposing the deep state fraud. That's wonderful. But as far as business goes, he's an absolute idiot.
We're hearing price inflation is under control, is it?
Well, if you impose the lie, it looks really good. We never stopped the lie. Robert Rubin was the champion of the Consumer Price Index lie. Robert Rubin, the Treasury Secretary in 1992 for Bill Clinton, the second narco president in the line of four. We lie. Every percent lied on price inflation is a lie of 1% on economic growth, because that's what we use to bring down the nominal GDP. I believe we're seeing some progress with the food prices. I monitor eggs. Eggs are way down. I just love these little chickens. They can kill a lot of chickens, adult chickens, egg-laying hens. But in 22 weeks, the new chicks are laying eggs. They need to continue to kill chickens. That's what the Department of Agriculture, under the Biden show. I don't call it a Biden presidency because he was dead. He was the first dead president in the United States, and that's why Trump put his auto pen signature on the wall. Okay, we do not have price inflation under control because we've not expanded the economy. We've not expanded the supply chain, which you need to do to bring down prices across the board. We do not provide much interest yield for insurance companies on their nut, which is their collection of assets from which they derive bond yield income. That's why insurance rates are going up, because they had 10 years of next to frickin' nothing in income. And the pension funds, same thing. So what do the insurance companies do? They raise the premiums and deny your awards when you have an accident. Sorry, that's not covered. Sorry. No, we're not going to rebuild the house because the fire was an extraordinary event. Okay. The insurance companies have become criminals. The pension funds have become paupers. So no, we don't have price inflation under control. We're not rebuilding the economy. We're not rebuilding the supply chain. I mean the supply chain in 30 industries. I'm not going to name them. Whatever. 30 industries. And we're cutting off supply from China, and prices are going up for everything where we depended on from China. Oh, my gosh. The group that hates Trump the most is farmers. They got wrecked in the previous administration. Trump won 2017 to 20. They're getting wrecked again because we can't sell soybeans to China. Can't sell them wheat. We're going to see more historically unprecedented bankruptcies in the farm sector for the Trump 2 administration. Don't get me wrong. I love what he's doing about exposing fraud to the deep state, identifying criminals, cutting out U.S. aid, cutting back the federal bureaucracy. But as far as business goes, he's an absolute idiot.
Threats and benefits. What's the latest on artificial intelligence?
I'm hearing that there are some difficulties in a few of the AI centers, that they cannot obtain enough electricity. I've done two, I think it was July and August, in my report for the newsletter, where we have undercapacity in the United States. We have no national policy. We adopted some of the lunatic, suicidal, cabal, globalist priority of going green. Going green means you destroy your economy because green cannot supply sufficient energy for your economy. It's a very interesting angle where they duped stupid-ass Americans and Westerners into shutting down nuclear plants and arguing, let's go green, let's go all green, let's go all green. Okay, there's your moron. Green energy cannot supply more than 15 to 20% of the energy needs of the entire economy. So when you go green, you kill the economy. Artificial intelligence is blamed for a number of job cuts. I featured in a recent report that Intel and Microsoft had huge, like each over 10,000 job cuts. They blamed it on AI, but I think it's more like they didn't want to say we've got an economic depression. I've been arguing we're in an economic depression since 2021. I define an economic depression as more than a 3% decline in the economy. And I believe we've had an inflationary depression until probably this year. This year we're not really burning with price inflation. We're just a little bit hot. So artificial intelligence is going to continue for the next 5 years to bring about high energy bills, high electric bills at your home. What we might be seeing is some of the consortiums, I know it's consortia, plural in Latin, I don't care. Some of the consortiums might be under rules of engagement where they need to deny the data centers and favor the homes, the households. So I haven't noticed, no client of mine has said, sorry, I've got an account with an AI service and I get locked out. No one's told me that yet, but I'm reading that they're short on electricity, and this is going to go on for the next 5 years because priority in the United States has been twofold for the last 5 years. War and economic destruction by the globalists. Systematic destruction by the globalists who partnered with the Democrats, who are basically narcos, communists, and Satanists. So with war and economic sabotage, we're having a hard time. We need to rebuild, and Trump needs to get the hell out of the way for foreign direct investments and quit threatening nations that have already pledged multi-billion-dollar foreign direct investment. Some of it is in artificial intelligence. Here's something to keep in mind. If you got a group of 10 workers and they each put to use AI tools, they can probably do the same amount of work with 8, so they can cut back 2 people. That does not mean AI is doing the job of 2 people. It means AI is reducing the workload or increasing the output. That's better description of the other 8, so that 2 can be let go. So learn your AI tools. Learn engineering. All kinds. Civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. Learn them. Don't have your kids opt out of mathematics for their junior year in high school. That's suicide.
The U.S. government shutdown was allowing President Trump to clean house. Who do you think he'll get rid of?
the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the National Institute of Health, FEMA, the Internal Revenue Service,